The sun was low over the planet Zarathus, painting the alien sky in streaks of red and gold. The royal palace of Queen Solara gleamed in the light, a vast structure of silver and crystal, its towers reaching toward the clouds. Outside the palace walls, the air was filled with the hum of strange creatures and the quiet rustle of alien plants. It was a beautiful world but dangerous, and only those strong enough to survive its hazards could call it home. Kyle, a human soldier, stood at the edge of the palace garden. He had been sent here as a mercenary, a protector for hire. Humans were rare on Zarathus, and many of the alien inhabitants looked down on them. To them, humans were fragile, unpredictable, and emotional. But Kale knew better. Humans were survivors, and he had proven it over and over in dangerous situations. He adjusted the strap of his armor and scanned the gardens. The air smelled faintly of alien flowers, sweet but sharp, and the soft wind carried the distant cries of wildlife. His instincts were alert. He had been here only a week, but already he felt the tension in the palace. This world, with all its beauty, had its dangers, and he was determined to face them head-on. Princess Lyria, the queen's young child, was playing near the marble fountains. She laughed, her voice like music, unaware of the dangers hidden in the shadows. Kale's eyes narrowed. Something felt wrong. He couldn't explain it, but his human instincts told him trouble was near. Suddenly, the bushes rustled violently. A large predator, a creature with shimmering scales and multiple legs, leapt from the shadows. Its eyes were sharp, glowing with hunger. Kale's heart raced. He had trained for situations like this, but nothing could fully prepare someone for the raw, sudden danger of a live predator. "Princess," Kyle shouted, his voice cutting through the garden air. But the predator was faster than he expected. It lunged toward Lyria, claws extended. Without thinking, Kale dove in front of her. The creature's claws tore through his armor, but Kale used his body as a shield. Pain shot through him, sharp and burning, but he gritted his teeth and held his ground. He could feel blood running down his side, soaking his uniform, but his mind focused only on one thing: keeping the child safe. The princess screamed, her small hands clutching at the fountain. Kale's free hand shot out, grabbing a fallen branch. With a swift, practiced motion, he drove it toward the creature. The predator recoiled, hissing, but did not retreat completely. Kale knew he had only one chance. He forced himself to stay calm, to think clearly despite the pain. He feigned a movement to the left, drawing the predator's attention, then struck with all his strength to the right. The creature yelped and stumbled backward, giving Kyle just enough time to grab Lyria and pull her away. The guards were finally arriving, their weapons drawn. They fired stun blasts, and the predator screeched as the energy bolts hit it. With a final angry snarl, the creature turned and disappeared into the dense foliage, leaving Kale panting and bleeding in the garden. Princess Lyria clung to him, her small arms around his neck. "You saved me," she whispered, her voice trembling. Kyle forced a weak smile. "That's what I'm here for, little one." He winced as pain shot through his side. "Stay behind me." By the time Queen Solara arrived, Kale was helping the princess to her feet. Her eyes, wide and filled with both fear and admiration, met Kale's. She had heard the alarm, seen the chaos, and watched her child saved by this human. "Kyle," the queen said, her voice both firm and curious. "Are you hurt?" Kale nodded, grimacing. "I'll live. The child is safe, and that's what matters." Queen Solara studied him for a long moment. Her sharp alien eyes seemed to see through him, weighing his courage, his strength, and his resolve. Most of her palace guards would have hesitated, and many would have fled. But this human, he had risked his life without thought. "You are brave," she said finally, her tone softening slightly. "And perhaps more than that, you are loyal in ways I have not seen in centuries." Kale looked at her, unsure how to respond. Loyalty was a simple thing to him. It meant protecting those who could not protect themselves. But he sensed there was more to the queen's words than mere gratitude. The palace medics quickly arrived, tending to his wounds. Kale gritted his teeth through the pain. He was not used to receiving praise, especially not from alien royalty. His human pride wanted him to dismiss it, to say it was nothing. But even he could not ignore the weight of the queen's gaze. Meanwhile, the princess clung to his side, still trembling. I thought I would die," she admitted quietly. "You're safe now," Kale said firmly. "And I'll make sure nothing ever threatens you like that again." He meant it. Humans had a stubbornness, a refusal to give up when it mattered most. That stubbornness had just saved her life. The queen stepped closer, her expression unreadable. Kale, your actions, they cannot go unnoticed. A human who protects a royal child with his own body, that is rare, exceptional. I think you belong here with us. Kyle frowned. With all due respect, Your Majesty, I am no one special. I am just a soldier. Perhaps, she said softly, but sometimes being human is enough to change everything. The words struck Kale. He had never considered that humans could be more than outsiders, more than tools for hire. But in that moment, standing in the palace garden, surrounded by alien guards and the grateful gaze of the queen, he felt a flicker of something new. Respect, recognition, perhaps even purpose. Over the next few hours, the queen made her decision clear. Kale would stay in the palace not as a prisoner, but as someone the queen herself claimed. He was to serve as her personal protector, the human who had shielded her child from death. Kale's mind raced. He valued freedom above all else. The thought of being bound to a palace, to a queen he barely knew, made his chest tighten. But at the same time, he understood something fundamental. Loyalty was not just about obedience. It was about doing what was right even when it was dangerous. And Kale had proven in the most extreme way possible that he could live by that code. The princess tugged at his arm, looking up at him with wide eyes. "You'll stay?" she asked. Kyle knelt down to her level, wincing as his side protested. "I'll stay," he said gently. "As long as you need me." Queen Solara watched this exchange silently. She knew she had chosen well. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but they also had courage, ingenuity, and heart, qualities the alien court often lacked. And this one human, he had shown all of them in a single heroic act. That evening, Kale sat in his assigned quarters, tending to his wounds. He could hear the faint sounds of the palace around him, the distant laughter of servants, the soft hum of alien machinery, and the peaceful breathing of the princess in the room next door. He thought about the day's events, about how a single decision, throwing himself in front of a child, had changed everything. He was still a soldier, still human, still an outsider, but for the first time he felt something he had never expected. He felt like he belonged. The morning sun rose over the palace of Queen Solara, spilling golden light across the marble floors and crystal towers. Kale sat in the great hall, still feeling the ache from his wounds. Even with the medic's best care, his side throbbed, a constant reminder of the predator he had faced. Yet the pain was small compared to the strange new reality he now found himself in. He had saved the princess, yes, but he had not expected what came next. Queen Solara had declared that he would remain in the palace, not as a visitor or a guest, but as someone claimed by the queen herself. Kale, a soldier trained for battle, was now bound by honor to an alien court that had little understanding of humans. The great hall was alive with activity. Alien courtiers moved with grace, their forms tall, lithe, and covered in shimmering scales or feathers. Their faces showed curiosity, suspicion, or disdain as Kale entered. Whispers followed him wherever he went. The human, the one who risked his life, now stays here. Kyle ignored them. He had learned long ago that alien courts were strange, full of customs that seemed meaningless but carried weight. To survive, he needed focus. And right now his focus was the princess. "Kale," a soft voice called. Princess Lyria's small hand reached out to him and he bent down, ignoring the sharp pain in his side. "Good morning, little one," he said. "Sleep well?" "Yes," she replied, blinking up at him. "Thank you for saving me." Kyle shrugged, hiding the warmth that her words gave him. "It was my job. Someone had to make sure you were safe." She tilted her head, her eyes thoughtful. "But most soldiers would run away. They would not risk themselves." "You did, that's special," Kel smiled faintly. Humans were not perfect, but they had a stubbornness and courage that often surprised others, and sometimes that courage could make all the difference. He felt a flicker of pride, quickly hidden behind his usual calm expression. Before they could continue, a servant arrived, bowing low. "Your Majesty requests your presence," the alien said, addressing Kale as if he were a member of the court. Kale followed the servant to the queen's chambers, muscles stiff and mind alert. Queen Solara awaited him, her expression calm but unreadable. Her eyes, sharp and intelligent, studied him as he approached. "You have performed a rare and noble act, Kale," she said. Not many beings, alien or human, would place themselves in front of a child in that way. You are remarkable, Kale shook his head. I'm just a soldier. I did what anyone else would have done. The Queen smiled faintly, though her eyes remained serious. Perhaps, but on Zarathus few act without thought for themselves. You are different. That is why I am claiming you as my champion. Kale's brow furrowed. Champion? You will remain in my service, the Queen explained. Not as a prisoner, but as a protector, advisor, and symbol of courage. Your loyalty will be honored, and your presence here will remind my court of values they have forgotten. Courage, honesty, and honor. Kyle swallowed. It was not exactly the life he had imagined when he first arrived on Zarathus. He valued freedom above all else, and being bound to the Queen's command was unsettling. Yet he could not ignore the sense of purpose this offer carried. Here he could make a real difference, not just fight for coin or survival. I understand, he said finally. I will do my best. Good, the Queen said, nodding. You begin your service today. Learn our ways, understand our court, and train for what is to come. You are human, yes, but even humans can rise to greatness. Over the next few days, Kale was introduced to palace life. He learned the rules, subtle and complex, of the alien court. Every gesture, every bow, and every phrase had meaning. The courtiers watched him closely, some with curiosity, others with thinly veiled contempt. Kale quickly realized that he stood out not just because he was human, but because of the way he acted. Where the aliens relied on tradition, he relied on instinct and reasoning. Where they hesitated, he acted. And slowly the whispers began to change, from doubt to admiration. The princess, of course, was delighted. She followed him everywhere, asking questions about humans, about fighting, and about bravery. Kale answered patiently, teaching her about courage, careful planning, and standing up for what was right. Why do humans risk themselves for others? She asked one afternoon as they walked in the palace garden, the alien sun casting long shadows on the marble paths. Kale considered this. Because sometimes protecting someone is more important than protecting yourself. It's about what matters most, not what is easy. Lyria nodded, her small face serious. I want to be brave like you. You already are, Kyle said gently. Bravery isn't about never being afraid. It's about what you do when you are afraid. But not everyone in the palace welcomed Kale's presence. Some of the alien nobles saw him as a threat. A human taking a place near the Queen disrupted the balance of power. Their whispers carried warnings: the Queen is softening. That human could undermine everything. Kale noticed their cold stares, their careful scrutiny. He ignored them, focusing on his duties, but he remained alert. Humans had a way of noticing danger that others missed, and Kale's instincts were never wrong. Then came the first test. During a routine inspection of the palace defenses, Kale noticed a small detail the alien guards had overlooked. A weak section of the palace barrier, one that could allow predators, or worse, assassins, to enter unnoticed. Why do you point this out? One guard asked, his voice sharp. It is not your place to question the palace defenses. Kale met his gaze steadily. Because someone could die if I don't. You can't see everything from tradition alone. Humans notice details. That's how we survive. The guard hesitated, then nodded, reluctantly accepting the advice. Kale's intervention prevented a minor disaster, and the court began to see that his presence was not just ceremonial. It was valuable. Training became part of Kale's daily routine. The aliens had techniques and weapons unfamiliar to him, but Kale adapted quickly. He combined their methods with his own human experience, creating strategies and tactics the aliens had never considered. Queen Solara watched these sessions closely, her face betraying a hint of pride. Kale's skill was impressive, yes, but it was his mind, his reasoning, adaptability, and courage that truly made him stand out. You are changing the court, Kale, she remarked one day, watching him demonstrate a defensive maneuver with a young palace guard. Your presence, it is teaching them to think differently, to act differently. Kale paused, wiping sweat from his brow. I'm just trying to keep everyone safe, Your Majesty. Safety is important, she said softly, but so is hope, and you bring both. Despite the Queen's praise, Kale knew that danger still lurked. The alien court was full of secrets and rivalries. Those who opposed him or resented his influence were plotting in shadows, waiting for a mistake. Kale had learned that survival on Zarathus required vigilance even within palace walls. Still, he found moments of peace with Princess Lyria. She was curious, intelligent, and unafraid, reminding him why he had risked everything in the garden that day. She wanted to explore, learn, and grow brave, and Kyle was determined to guide her using every lesson he knew. "You will have enemies here," he told her one evening as they watched the alien sun set. "But bravery isn't about fighting every battle. It's about knowing which ones matter and standing firm when it does." "I will remember," she said, her small hand resting in his. "I want to be brave like you, Kale. I want to protect others too." Kale felt a flicker of hope. Humans were rare here, yes, but perhaps they could inspire more than fear. Perhaps one human could change the course of an alien society simply by being true to his values. And Kyle knew he would not fail. Not while he had strength, courage, and the unwavering resolve that had already saved a life, and would save many more. The Queen had claimed him as her champion. The palace, at first skeptical, was beginning to see his worth. And Kale, for the first time, felt a sense of purpose he had never known. A place where his humanity, his courage, and his honor could make a difference in a world that desperately needed it. The future was uncertain, full of challenges, dangers, and intrigue, but Kale had survived far worse than whispers and suspicious glances. He had faced death to save a child, and he would face whatever came next with the same unyielding resolve. For humans, he knew, survival was only the beginning. True greatness came when courage and heart met opportunity, and on Zarathus, Kale was about to prove both. Kale had been in the palace for nearly a week now, and each day brought a new lesson in alien customs, politics, and hidden dangers. The palace of Queen Solara was magnificent, but it was not just a home. It was a world of strategy, whispers, and subtle threats. Every smile, every bow, every casual word could carry a hidden meaning. Kale, a human raised on honesty and action, often found himself struggling to decode the layers of deception around him. He had grown stronger in combat, adapting quickly to alien fighting styles. The palace guards had taught him techniques that no human had ever seen before: how to move silently on floors that seemed impossible to traverse, how to wield energy weapons with precision, and how to anticipate attacks from creatures he had never imagined. Kale learned fast, faster than the aliens expected, and they began to notice. Not all of them were pleased. Some of the palace nobles whispered behind closed doors, "The human is bold, too bold. The Queen favors him. Soon he will have power that should be ours." Kyle ignored the whispers, focusing instead on Princess Lyria. She had grown fond of him, following him through the corridors, asking endless questions about the human world, and observing his training sessions. Kyle found himself patiently answering every query, explaining human courage, reasoning, and the simple idea of helping others. "You humans seem different," Lyria said one afternoon as they walked through the palace garden. The alien sun cast long shadows, and the soft breeze carried the scent of exotic flowers. "You think about others first, even when it is dangerous." Why, Kyle considered this. "Sometimes protecting someone else is more important than protecting yourself," he said. "It is not about being brave, it is about knowing what is right and acting on it, no matter the risk." The princess nodded, thoughtful. "I want to be brave like that. I want to help others too." Kale smiled. "You will, little one. You already have the courage. You just need to learn how to use it." Life in the palace was not all calm lessons and gentle walks. Kale quickly discovered that alien courts thrived on intrigue. The nobles were masters of manipulation, and many were unhappy with his presence. Some challenged his authority subtly, while others tried to undermine him openly. During a training session in the palace courtyard, one of the lead guards, a tall alien named Ravik, challenged Kale openly. "You are human," Ravik said, his voice sharp. "You do not belong here. Your strength is nothing compared to generations of our soldiers. How can the Queen trust you?" Kale met his gaze steadily. "Because I act when it matters," he said calmly. "It is not strength alone that keeps people alive. It is courage, awareness, and the willingness to protect others. I have already saved someone the rest of you hesitated to defend." Ravik sneered, but he could not ignore the truth. Kale had indeed saved Princess Lyria, an act that no alien soldier had dared. Other guards and nobles began to murmur, some grudgingly admiring him, others plotting quietly against him. Kyle knew that survival in this court required more than strength. He had to earn respect, navigate intrigue, and protect the princess at the same time. And that was only the beginning. One afternoon, Kale was inspecting the palace gardens when he noticed something strange. A small section of the palace walls had been weakened, scratched and tampered with in a way that suggested someone had tried to gain secret entry. Kale's instincts screamed danger. He alerted the guards immediately, but many of them dismissed his concern. "The walls are strong," one said. "No one could breach them." Kyle shook his head. "The walls may be strong, but someone is testing them. If we ignore it, someone could get inside. Someone could get hurt." Reluctantly, the guards followed him to the spot he had noticed. Kale demonstrated the weakness in the wall, pointing out the scratches, the displaced panels, and the subtle signs of tampering. The guards were impressed. Even Ravik, who had previously doubted Kale, could not hide his respect. "You were right," Ravik admitted grudgingly. "Humans notice details we often overlook." Kale nodded. "It is not about being human. It is about paying attention and acting before it is too late." Kyle's reputation in the palace began to grow. Some admired him quietly. Others feared the influence he had over the queen and the princess. He was proving that human ingenuity and courage could surpass tradition and hierarchy. But with admiration came danger. Hidden threats were never far away, and Kale had learned to expect the unexpected. One evening, while Kale was training in the weapons chamber, he noticed a figure moving in the shadows. The figure was silent, but Kale's senses, honed by human survival instincts, detected it immediately. He moved quickly, blocking a potential attack, and caught a young noble attempting to sabotage his training equipment. "Why are you doing this?" Kale demanded, gripping the intruder's wrist. The noble struggled, hissing in the alien language, but Kale did not let go. "The queen will see your actions," he said firmly. "And if you try to harm anyone here again, you will answer to me, and to her." The intruder fled, and Kale realized that his challenges were only beginning. Court life was not just about etiquette and training. It was a battlefield of secrets, rivalries, and hidden ambitions. Despite the threats, Kale continued to focus on what mattered most: the princess. He spent long hours teaching her, not just about courage, but about thinking strategically, observing the world carefully, and acting decisively. Lyria was a quick learner, and Kale took pride in her growth. "Today we will practice defense," he told her one afternoon. "Not just fighting, but using your mind to stay safe." They practiced scenarios in the garden, Kale showing her how to anticipate danger, how to move quickly and quietly, and how to stay calm under pressure. The princess laughed at first, stumbling and falling, but she improved quickly under Kyle's patient guidance. "You are getting better every day," Kyle said, helping her to her feet. "Remember, courage is not about being fearless, it is about facing what you must, even when you are afraid." Kyle's human traits, honesty, courage, and ingenuity, began to have a subtle but growing impact on the palace. Some of the nobles who had been skeptical started to see value in his methods. Soldiers trained under him, learning techniques and strategies they had never considered. And Queen Solara watched quietly, realizing that Kale's presence was changing not just her court, but the culture of her kingdom. "You are more than a protector," she said one evening as Kale reported to her. "You are teaching lessons the court has forgotten. Humans may be rare here, but you show what is possible when courage and intelligence are combined." Kale bowed, feeling both pride and responsibility. "I only do what is right, Your Majesty." "That is exactly why you are needed," the queen replied. But not everyone was impressed. The faction that opposed Kale's presence began to plot more openly. They whispered to each other, plotted minor sabotages, and spread rumors among the lower ranks of the palace. Kale knew that danger was growing, but he also knew that humans had a way of turning challenges into advantages. One night, Kale patrolled the palace walls, keeping a careful watch. The alien moon cast a pale glow over the grounds, and the soft wind carried the distant sounds of the palace at rest. His sharp eyes caught movement, a figure attempting to scale the wall. Kale acted instantly, intercepting the intruder before they could reach the princess's quarters. It was a minor attack, but it proved a critical point. Kale's vigilance had prevented disaster. The palace guards were amazed at his speed, precision, and foresight. And the queen, hearing of his actions, silently acknowledged that her choice had been wise. By the end of the week, Kale had established himself as a key figure in the palace. He was no longer just a human soldier. He was a symbol of courage and ingenuity. He had earned the respect of many, the fear of some, and the admiration of the princess. Kale knew the challenges were far from over. Court intrigue, hidden enemies, and the dangerous world outside the palace walls would continue to test him. But he also knew this. Humans had a resilience, a courage, and a cleverness that could turn even the most impossible situations into triumphs. The palace of Queen Solara was quiet in the early morning, the alien sun just rising over the crystal towers. Mist drifted across the gardens, curling around the marble fountains, and the palace walls glinted in the soft light. Kale stood on the highest terrace, surveying the grounds. His side was healing, but he remained vigilant. Danger on Zarathus was never far away, and humans like him learned quickly that caution could save lives. The week had been intense. Kale had trained soldiers, taught the princess, and navigated the subtle intrigues of the alien court. Yet despite his successes, he sensed a storm coming. There was tension in the air, whispered warnings among the guards, and the faint but unmistakable signs of plotting. Kale knew that someone was preparing to strike, and it would not be a simple attack. That evening, the warning came. A small patrol returned from the outer palace grounds, breathless and panicked. "They've breached the eastern perimeter," one of the guards shouted. A group of rebels, masked, armed, and fast. Kale's instincts kicked in immediately. He grabbed his weapon, checking its energy levels and running through the palace layout in his mind. "Move the princess to safety," he ordered. His voice carried authority, calm but firm. "Every guard to your positions. Protect the queen. Protect the palace." Princess Lyria, awakened by the alarms, appeared at the doorway, eyes wide with fear. Kale rushed to her side. "It's okay," he said, keeping his tone steady despite the rapid beating of his heart. "Stay close to me. I won't let anything happen to you." Her small hand found his, gripping tightly. Kale smiled faintly, though his mind raced. Humans had a natural instinct for protecting those they cared about, and it sharpened under pressure. Today that instinct would be tested to the limit. The rebels moved swiftly. They were alien, fierce, and organized, using the same techniques the palace had trained to defend against. Yet Kale noticed their mistakes immediately. They relied on brute force and predictable patterns, which he quickly exploited. He led the princess and a small squad of loyal guards through secret corridors he had memorized during his time in the palace. Each step was precise, each decision calculated. Kale's human mind, trained to think under pressure, allowed him to anticipate the rebels' movements. The queen, aware of the danger, coordinated her loyalists, but even her experience could not match the unpredictability of Kale's tactics. He used his knowledge of both human and alien combat methods, blending speed, strategy, and ingenuity in ways the attackers could not anticipate. The first confrontation came at the northern courtyard. The rebels had cornered a group of palace guards, their weapons aimed and ready. Kale acted without hesitation. He shouted commands, directing the guards to cover, then used a combination of hand-to-hand combat and alien weaponry to neutralize the attackers. The battle was chaotic. Energy blasts lit up the courtyard, clashing with the alien soldiers' shields. Kale moved like a force of nature, guiding the princess behind cover while simultaneously taking out multiple enemies. His human instincts for improvisation, speed, and courage gave him an edge. A rebel lunged at him, a blade crackling with energy. Kale sidestepped, grabbing a nearby column and using it to launch the attacker off balance. The rebel fell hard, groaning, and Kyle pressed forward, never losing focus. Meanwhile, Queen Solara observed from the palace balcony. Her eyes were sharp, taking in every movement. But she knew that Kale was the key to defending the child and the palace. His human unpredictability, combined with his bravery, was unmatched by any alien soldier. "He fights with heart," she said quietly to one of her advisors. "And that is something we have underestimated for too long. Humans. They are not only strong, they are clever, adaptable, and fearless when it matters." Back in the courtyard, Kale had rallied the guards. "Push them back! Protect the gates! No one gets through." His voice was steady even as the rebels pressed harder. His strategy was simple but effective: defend, redirect, and outsmart. Kale anticipated every move, using the attackers' aggression against them. The climax came near the main gates. The rebels had regrouped, attempting a concentrated assault to reach the queen. Kale positioned himself in front of the princess, energy weapon raised. The attackers hesitated, unsure how to breach his human defenses. Kyle's mind worked fast. He noticed a pattern. The rebels always attacked in groups of 3. Using this knowledge, he moved strategically, taking down one at a time while directing the guards to intercept the others. His human ingenuity was creating chaos in the enemy ranks. "Kyle," the princess shouted, worried. "Be careful." He glanced at her, offering a reassuring smile. "I've got this," he said before spinning into action. Hours seemed to pass in minutes. The palace courtyard became a battlefield, energy blasts lighting up the night sky. Yet through it all, Kale remained calm, focused, and precise. Each move he made protected the princess, saved guards, and eliminated enemies. Finally, the last of the rebels was either captured or fleeing. The palace had survived the assault thanks to Kale's strategy, skill, and courage. Guards and nobles alike looked at him in awe. Even those who had doubted him before were silent, realizing that his human abilities were extraordinary. Kyle, panting and bruised, finally allowed himself to relax slightly. He turned to Princess Lyria. She ran to him, throwing her arms around his waist. "You saved us!" she cried. Kale hugged her back, careful not to crush her in his arms. "We're safe," he said gently. "Thanks to all of us working together." The queen arrived moments later, her expression both proud and solemn. She studied Kale, taking in the blood on his uniform, the bruises on his face, and the determined look in his eyes. "You have done more than defend a child or a palace," she said. "You have defended the honor of our people and shown what courage truly means. You have proven that humans can rise above expectations and that loyalty and heart are as powerful as any weapon." Kale bowed slightly. "I only did what anyone should do. Protect those who cannot protect themselves." Queen Solara shook her head, a small smile on her face. "You are no ordinary human, Kale. You are a champion. From this day forward, you are my right hand, my protector, and the shield of this palace. But more than that, you are a symbol of what courage, honor, and humanity can achieve." The aftermath of the attack left the palace shaken but stronger. Kale's bravery had inspired not only the guards but also the young princess, the courtiers, and even some of the skeptical nobles. They began to understand that Kale's human traits, courage, intelligence, and quick thinking, were invaluable in a world that often relied too heavily on tradition and hierarchy. Kale spent the following days helping rebuild defenses, training soldiers, and ensuring the safety of the queen and princess. He also took time to teach the princess lessons in strategy, observation, and courage. Lyria was eager to learn, soaking in every detail, every word, every example of bravery her human protector displayed. "You humans are strange," she said one evening as they reviewed palace defense strategies. "You risk yourselves for others even when you might get hurt." "Why?" Kyle smiled faintly. "Because sometimes saving others is more important than saving yourself. That's what makes us human, and that's what makes courage real." The court slowly came to respect Kale, not just for his skill but for his unwavering dedication. Even nobles who had once whispered against him began to see the value in his methods and character. Kale had survived attacks, navigated intrigue, and saved lives, all while remaining true to his principles. Yet Kale knew this was only the beginning. The attack had revealed that the palace and the queen's rule were still vulnerable. Secret enemies remained, hidden in shadows, waiting for a chance to strike again. Kale's human instincts told him that vigilance was more important than ever. But he also knew another truth. Humans were not only survivors, they were leaders, thinkers, and heroes. And Kale intended to prove that again and again as long as he drew breath. The queen had tested him, the palace had tested him, and now the rebels had tested him. Kale had passed every trial, but the real challenge, he knew, lay ahead, protecting the princess, guiding the palace, and proving that humanity could change the fate of an alien world forever. Kale looked out over the palace walls, the alien moon casting pale light across the towers. He felt the weight of responsibility, the sharp ache of battle, and the steady pulse of determination. He had faced death to protect a child, and now he would face any danger, any enemy, any threat to fulfill his promise. Humans had always survived, and today, Kale had shown that they could thrive, even in a world that doubted them. The palace of Queen Solara was quiet in the early morning. The crystal towers reflected the soft light of the twin suns, casting long shadows across the gardens. The attack had ended days ago, yet the palace still hummed with tension. Courtiers whispered about the human who had saved the princess, while guards patrolled with sharper eyes and quicker reflexes. Kale, now fully recovered from his wounds, stood at the highest balcony watching over the palace grounds. He had changed. Not just physically stronger from combat training, but sharper, wiser, and more aware of the intricate balance between courage and strategy. Humans were often underestimated in this alien world, but Kale had proven that even one human, guided by courage, loyalty, and intelligence, could make a difference. Princess Lyria approached him quietly, her small footsteps almost lost in the marble floors. "Kyle?" she asked softly. Kale turned and smiled down at her. "Good morning, little one. How are you today?" "I'm okay," she replied. "The palace feels safer now because of you." "Everyone says so." Kyle crouched slightly to meet her eyes. "Safety is never permanent. We have to stay alert, but yes, we have made it safer together." Lyria's eyes shone. "I want to be brave like you, Kale. I want to help people too." Kale nodded. "And you will. You already are brave. You just need to trust yourself." The events of the past days had left the palace and the Queen's court in a new state. Kale's human perspective, his quick thinking and courage, had inspired not only the soldiers but also many of the nobles. Some of them still whispered doubts, but most had begun to see that Kale's methods, though unconventional, were effective. Queen Silara summoned Kale to the main hall. Her expression was serene but firm. "Kale," she began, "you have done more than I ever imagined possible. You protected my child, defended the palace, and showed what humans can achieve. For that, you have my eternal gratitude." Kale bowed respectfully. "I did what anyone should do, Your Majesty. I only acted to protect the innocent and the kingdom." "You underestimate yourself," the Queen replied, stepping closer. "You are more than a soldier. You are a symbol of hope and strength. Your actions have shown my people a new standard of courage, honor, and loyalty. From now on, you will hold a permanent place here, not just as my protector, but as an advisor and teacher." Kale's mind raced. Freedom had always been his greatest value, yet he understood that this was not imprisonment. This was purpose. Here his courage could guide not only the princess but the palace itself. "I accept," Kale said finally, his voice firm. "I will serve and protect as best I can." The weeks that followed were full of change. Kale worked tirelessly, training the palace guards in human tactics, teaching the young soldiers to think, to adapt, and to act decisively. The alien soldiers, initially skeptical, were soon impressed by his methods. Kale showed them how to anticipate attacks, how to remain calm under pressure, and how to value courage above all else. He also focused on Princess Lyria. She had grown bolder, more confident, and more observant. Under Kale's guidance, she learned not only to defend herself but also to think strategically, understanding the importance of planning and foresight. "You have learned well," Kale said one afternoon as they practiced defensive maneuvers in the palace courtyard. "Remember, bravery is not about being fearless. It is about acting even when you are afraid, and protecting those who cannot protect themselves." Lyria nodded, her eyes shining. "I understand, Kale. I want to protect everyone like you." Kyle smiled faintly. Humans had always inspired hope through their courage, and now he saw that same spark in the young princess. But the peace was fragile. Not everyone in the palace accepted Kale's influence. Some nobles still feared his presence, plotting in secret to regain power. Kale knew he could not ignore them. He began to watch carefully, listening to whispers, observing movements, and subtly countering schemes before they could come to fruition. One night, a minor conspiracy was uncovered. A group of nobles planned to steal valuable intelligence from the Queen's chambers, hoping to use it to weaken her rule. Kale intercepted them silently, using a combination of human ingenuity and the palace's layout to trap the conspirators without bloodshed. The Queen learned of this the next morning. "You have done it again," she said, admiration and pride in her voice. "Not just with strength but with wisdom, humans. You are unlike anything we imagined." Kale shook his head. "It's not about being human. It's about paying attention, thinking ahead, and acting when it matters." Queen Silara smiled. "Perhaps that is what makes humans extraordinary. And you, Kyle, are extraordinary among humans." Kale's influence grew steadily. Soldiers learned to combine traditional alien tactics with human improvisation. The palace defenses became stronger, more flexible, and more intelligent. The princess became a confident young leader, her courage and intelligence reflecting Kale's teachings. Even the Queen's Council began to respect human methods, seeing their value in ways they had never imagined. Yet Kale never allowed himself to become arrogant. He remained vigilant, understanding that danger could strike at any moment. The attack on the palace had been a warning. Enemies were always watching, always waiting for a chance. One evening, Kyle stood on the palace wall, looking out at the horizon. The twin suns were setting, casting long shadows over the towers. He felt the weight of responsibility pressing on him, but also a quiet pride. Humans had survived, thrived, and inspired. And now, he was helping an alien society see that courage, loyalty, and intelligence were universal values. Princess Lyria approached quietly, her small hand brushing against his arm. "Kyle," she said softly, "do you think humans will always be able to help people even in worlds like this?" Kyle looked down at her, smiling. "Yes. As long as humans have courage, heart, and the willingness to do what is right, we can make a difference anywhere." Months passed, and Kale's role in the palace became permanent. He was no longer just the Queen's protector. He was her advisor, the trainer of her guards, and a mentor to the young princess. His influence reshaped the palace, bringing new strategies, new courage, and a sense of purpose to a court that had grown complacent in tradition. Kale also became a symbol to the people of Zarathus. Stories of the human who had risked his life for a child spread across the kingdom. Humans, once seen as outsiders, were now respected and valued. Kale's actions had proven that courage, intelligence, and loyalty could overcome prejudice, fear, and doubt. One afternoon, as Kale trained with a group of young guards, the Queen approached. She placed a hand on his shoulder. "You have done more than I ever imagined," she said. "Not just for me or my child, but for this entire kingdom. Humans have earned a place here because of you." Kale nodded quietly. "I only did what was right. That is all anyone can do." The Queen smiled, her eyes reflecting both pride and gratitude. Sometimes doing what is right is enough to change the world. Kale's life had changed completely. He had come to Zarathus as a soldier, a stranger in a foreign land. Now he was a hero, a mentor, and a symbol of human courage. He had protected a child, defended a palace, and reshaped an alien court through bravery, intelligence, and integrity. Yet despite all of this, Kale remained humble. He knew that heroism was not about glory. It was about action, loyalty, and heart. He had saved lives because it was the right thing to do, not because he sought recognition. Princess Lyria ran to him, laughing, as he finished a training session. "Kale, watch this," she shouted, performing a maneuver he had taught her. Kale smiled, watching her grow confident and brave. "Very good," he said. "You are learning fast. Remember, courage is about using what you know to protect others." Lyria nodded, her eyes shining with determination. "I will, Kyle, I promise." That evening, Kyle stood with the Queen on the balcony, looking out over the palace and the city beyond. The alien suns had set, leaving a sky full of stars. The kingdom was safe, the princess was strong, and the palace was secure. "You have done more than protect my child," the Queen said quietly. "You have protected hope itself. Your humanity has shown us that courage, loyalty, and heart are more powerful than any weapon." Kale bowed his head respectfully. "I am only human. That is all I can offer." "Being human is enough," the Queen said firmly. "It has changed everything here, and you have changed everything by being true to yourself." Kale looked out at the horizon, feeling the weight of responsibility and the quiet pride of accomplishment. Humans had always survived, always adapted, and always persevered. And now on Zarathus, Kale had shown that humans could inspire, lead, and protect even in a world that doubted them. The princess joined him, holding his hand. Kale smiled faintly, feeling the bond he had forged with her in the palace. He had risked his life to protect a child, and in doing so he had changed a kingdom. Humans, he realized, were capable of greatness anywhere.